What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are covering some first reactions and reviews from a recent screening. This is, do I gotta say anything? It's for Superman. Before we do, please do us a favor, like the video, subscribe, click that bell if you like this type of content. We cover stuff like this for the big movies, the early reactions, and just the buzz and the word around, how people are receiving this movie. A lot of people have gotten to watch it now. They recently did the red carpet premiere and also had a ton of press screenings all over the country. So we've got an abundance of reactions. So I'm gonna cut this intro as quick as possible and get straight into it. This first one comes from Jeremy saying, James Gunn absolutely nailed it with Superman. From the music and VFX to the camera work and humor, he crafted the ideal lighthearted kid-friendly family film for the summer. Every character has standout moments, especially Krypto. Now, this is one thing I wanted to acknowledge before we get into the rest, because there's a ton of reviews that I'm going to be reading, but I want to acknowledge the kid family friendly aspect that they said. One thing that was very interesting to me when seeing all the trailers and just the way James Gunn has talked about this film was his approach to the tone of the movie and who this movie is geared towards audience wise. And while a lot of us might perceive this character as stoic or super serious, Superman was made for kids. That's what he's always been made for. And when I grew up watching stuff like the Superman animated series, Justice League Unlimited, and even stuff like Smallville, you get those mature moments in those in that media. But inherently, I just hope this is a Superman movie for everyone. I hope kids can walk in here and just have a grin on their face. And hearing that from the very first reaction that we've covered is so promising. But we're gonna move on because we have a ton more. This next one comes from the Hollywood Handle saying, Superman perfectly understands what it means to be human. It's a powerful and promising start to the new DCU. The film moves you by revealing the heart behind the cape. David is phenomenal, but a huge highlight is how Nicholas Hoult delivers a phenomenal Lex Luthor, cold, charismatic, and menacing, one of the best villains DC has ever brought to the screen. The score and sound design are out of this world. You feel every note, every impact makes you soar inside. Love to hear that. I'm loving it so far. This is like my most anticipated movie of the year. It might be yours, it might not be. Start letting me know in the comments down below, stuff like that. What you think about these reactions? How excited are you? What are you most looking forward to? Anything. This next one we have though comes from Sean Chandler. Love the guy. Go check out his channel. He does tons of movie content and he's very informative, and yeah, he just makes really great content. But he says, Superman was my most anticipated film of the year, and I left the theater with a smile on my face. It's possibly the most comic booky live action comic book film ever. It fully leans into the wacky sci-fi. It really feels like a comic book or Justice League Unlimited on screen. That's just music to my ears as someone who is a absolute diehard for the DCAU, and growing up, those were my morning cartoons whenever I had that bowl of cereal. And yeah, so great to hear that it met expectations, and it being the most comic booky film, I'm really curious about that. We've had very comic booky films. James Gunn himself has made very comic booky films. I think the Suicide Squad is one of the most authentically comic driven films ever made. And you have other movies like The Mask, your Scott Pilgrim versus the Worlds, your Into the Spider-Verses, and I'm curious where this lands and how much they lean into that. But this next one we have comes from Sean O'Connell saying, I loved Superman. Gave me the biggest, goofiest, stupidest, full-faced grin as I reveled in everything James Gunn staged. Perfect cast and world building. It's unapologetically comic booky, which won't work for some, but as far as DC DC Comics movies go, it's a blistering delight. And I do want to point that out. Making a movie that's extremely comic booky, extremely fantastical, almost over the top even, might not be for everyone. This movie was never going to be for everyone. It was never going to have a 10 out of 10 on IMDb, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 100% on Metacritic. It was never going to have that. But the thing about DC is, in this last couple decades, they've been fairly making their movies grounded, gritty, dark, and it's worked for some, and it's plagued some others, and some have just been outright not good movies. But getting this from a DC movie feels refreshing, and that's what the Suicide Squad was for me, and it sounds like this is leaning even more into that, which I love to hear. This next couple, I'm gonna cover 3 from the people over at the Movie Podcast. Love them, go check them out as well. So this one comes from Anthony First, saying Superman is a visually stunning spectacle ripped straight out of the comics. James Gunn reclaims the symbol of hope with a bold, triumphant rebirth of a timeless hero. Corenswet stands tall as the Man of Tomorrow in a film that wears its heart on its cape and dares to dream big. I love to hear that. This next one comes from Shabazz, saying Superman soars even if it always doesn't stick the landing. Corenswet is a stellar Man of Steel. Holt's Luthorist villainy is top tier, and Brosnahan is a magnetic Lois. Krypto steal scenes and the Justice Gang dynamic punches up this bold new chapter. You must see it in IMAX. And then we've got Daniel Baptista saying Superman is a generation-defining superhero movie and a soaring start to the DCU. James Gunn brings heart, humility, and hope to the Superman movie I have been waiting my entire life for. David Corenswet is instantly iconic as the Man of Steel. The future of DC is very bright. I mean, that is amazing to hear. Even Shabazz, who had his qualms with it, really enjoyed it, which I love seeing. This next one though comes from a 3C Films, amazing YouTube channel. You probably know who that is. If you don't, go watch him. Hilarious. Love the guy to death. But he says Superman left me with a giant happy dumb grin. David Corenswet embodies Superman in such a perfect way. This is an actual comic book come to life. James Gunn's DCU feels extraordinary and makes me excited to see more of this world. I have my nitpicks, others will too. Overall, I'm very happy. Love to hear that, and love that he's excited for the future of the DCU. This film might not be perfect for everyone, and I want to make that clear. I might not love it as much as I wanted to, but as long as it makes me interested in the future going forward for DC, and also gives me something refreshing while it not being boring. That's just that I hate a movie that is a slog, that doesn't interest me. As long as it does that, I want these characters to move on to the future of the DCU and do more things if it sets up an interesting world. And I like that he emphasized that in that review. This next one comes from John Dotson, saying Superman is a winner. I have complaints with the Marvel levels CGI, but James Gunn has crafted a splashy, colorful superhero film with tremendous characters. Mr. Terrific stole the movie for me. Corenswet and Brosnahan shine. I can watch an entire film on their chemistry alone. That's one that it's not really mixed, clearly positive, but they had complaints about the CGI, which is unfortunate to hear. I'm curious to see how I'll like it or how well it will be when I go see it. But yeah, they seem to really enjoy it still. This next one comes from David Thompson though, and he says Superman is a comic book movie that shakes the rust off an entire genre. James Gunn once again proves he's the best in the biz at balancing humor and heart, but this time it's never felt more important. David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult steal the show as promised. There are sequences that truly floored me. One of the biggest compliments I can pay this film is that it tries to be its own thing and succeeds. It's bold and comforting in the best ways, kind of like Superman himself. I love to hear that. A lot of people, the naysayers, the people that were always going to dislike this movie and probably will call this, regular, safe, just a remake of Superman 78 or something like that. When I'm here for James Gunn's Superman movie, whether I like it or not, I want a distinct feeling film that has its own sense of style, its own voice, and that's what I'm getting from some of these reactions. I don't want WB's DC movie or DC Studios' Superman movie. I want James Gunn's Superman movie, and it sounds like that's what we might be getting, which makes me extremely excited. Tessa Smith from Almost Geeky, though, says James Gunn's Superman is phenomenal. David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult nailed their roles perfectly. The chemistry between Rachel Brosnahan and David is electric. The action, humor, and cinematography are top notch. The perfect entry to the DCU. I need more now. What a movie. I love to hear that. I'm loving the buzz already, and just how much it makes people more interested in the future of DC, and that makes me so happy. But this next one comes from Nick, saying Superman made me so incredibly happy. It's vibrant, exciting, and full of hope, wonder, and awe. Everything a Superman movie should be, and a comic brought to life with a cast of characters that all stand out in the best ways. It wears its heart on its sleeve the entire time, which makes the experience so special and gratifying. The third act has some stumbles, but this is a terrific start for the DCU, and just so great to see Superman back on the big screen. You'll believe a man can fly again. Loved it, man. I'm just ecstatic with this reception so far, and it seems like at the very least, even people who aren't, as high as others on it are walking out with a grin on their face. That's what Superman is. Give us hope, make us smile, and I love that. I love that most of the people that have seen this movie are walking out with a grin on their face. That makes me so happy. But this next one comes from Zach Pope, another YouTuber. Love the guy. Go check him out. He says, Superman is the defining film that we all need right now. A beautiful, poetic, and punk rock film that shapes not only the DCU, but the future of what comic book films should be. Gunn goes all out, delivering a story on what it means to be human. David is truly the next Superman. Love to hear that this is, going to be a Superman for an entirely new generation, and I'm curious, how that will go down, how, maybe the younger audience or people not familiar with Superman media might react to this, and hopefully they do fall in love with the character, the Man of Steel, and it makes them, dive into more stories, whether that's comics, shows, animation, live action media, anything. It's exciting, but we're gonna cover a couple more and then wrap this up. This one comes from Jessica, saying the new Superman is fun and full of heart. David Corenswet makes a sweet and hopeful Clark, and Krypto the dog is a cute bonus. It's a bit crowded and cartoonish at times, but if you're into feel-good superhero movies, it's worth watching. So it seems like they had, a couple issues with maybe the tone of it, and it's not perfect, but they even seem to really enjoy it, and that's so promising. This next one comes from Adam Hlavic from Heroes Reforged, another YouTube channel that I love. He says, Superman soars with heart, heroism, and spectacle. David Corenswet brings warmth and sincerity to the Man of Tomorrow. While the plot feels a bit bloated, it's a clear sign that James Gunn understands these characters at their core. Excited for the future of the DC universe. I just want to reiterate what that means to me. There was a lot of us, skeptical on this movie, and even for us that were really hyped for it, the reboot, the change of everything regarding the previous DC universe, that was the question, was whether this entire rehash, rebooting everything was worth it. And it seems like it might be, as long as it gets people interested in the DCU moving forward. I think that is a huge success. But this next one we have comes from ArcLight, saying Superman, okay, I loved it. We'll see if that still stands on my IMAX viewing tomorrow. There are some misses, but more hits than misses is all I can say. Great characters all around. They could have not assembled a better cast. Superman is a wonderful ride of a film. And then we're going to cover one last one. This one's lengthy, from Matt Neglia over at Next Best Picture. I love the guy. I love his reviews. I think he's super insightful. And yeah, he says Superman is just as fun, vibrant, and idiosyncratic as James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy films, yet it still captures the empowering, hopeful spirit of the comics. His distinctive style and offbeat humor, along with the crowded cast of characters and narrative blow, may not be for everyone, but Gunn was never going to please everyone. No matter what he did, for me, it mostly works, especially because Gunn shows such a deep understanding of what Superman should represent in 2025, while staying true to what the character has always stood for. David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult all feel perfectly cast in their iconic roles, and yes, Krypto is awesome, but it's 𝙎𝙬𝙁𝙀𝙁 who unexpectedly steals the show as the calm and cool Mr. Terrific. There are some moments when the film soars, surprises, stumbles, and falls, but it's consistently energetic, full of promise, and delivers a hero audiences can look up to, relate to, and believe in as DC Studios looks forward toward the future. Love to hear that. I mean, that is just amazing. Like I said, it's not going to be for everyone, and we've also heard Mr. Terrific being a huge standout multiple times from many people, which makes me so excited. I love the character. If I had to recommend any Mr. Terrific jumping off points, I would personally recommend Strange Adventures. I think he's amazing in there, and I definitely think I can tell what they're saying with how he's so calm and stoic, and it creates a humor possibly for like dry humor, and I love that possibility. I think Mr. Terrific has the potential to really like lead movies. He's that charismatic, but not in a like over the top way. He's super intelligent and he's very direct. He's blunt, and I think that's what makes him, you know, depending on the characters he can bounce off of, you know, funny, but also very interesting. But I love what I'm hearing. Glowing reviews, even from people who weren't as high on it, seem to be, you know, leaning positive, which is great to hear. I'm watching it in IMAX tonight, so hopefully I enjoy it. But you guys tell me in the comments below, how excited are you for Superman? Did you like the trailers? Did you not? Are you going in skeptical? Is it your most anticipated movie of the year? Tell me anything. I love discussing with you guys down there in the comments below. And if you made it this far and you haven't, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and click that bell. Helps us out a ton over here. And other than that, it's been 𝙎𝙀𝙚𝙁𝙚, and hopefully I will see you all in the next one.